You're with Nationwide this morning, and of course, it's our staple on a Wednesday morning. All things real estate. This morning again, I have the pleasure of speaking with managing attorney at Lawboss Attorneys at Law, Sophia Brand. Sophia, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
You all right?
Yes, I'm good.
You're good. All right. On today's episode, we are diving into a topic that more and more homeowners are curious about, the issue of trusts.
Yes.
TRUSTS. And I'm sure many of you have heard of trust this, trust that. But what does it mean to put your home into a trust? Is it only for rich people? I know many people who think that. Or is it simply a smart move that everyday families can make? So, Sophia, I turn it over to you. The issue of trust is what we're talking about this morning. What exactly is a trust? Is it the same thing as a will? Is it different? Talk to me.
Thank you. So I decided to bring this topic because that's actually one of the calls that I've been receiving, persons requesting consultations about that, because it's not a very common thing in our jurisdiction. But Jamaica has been we are a part of the common law, and so whatever pertains in the common law, we have access to it as well. However, in 2019, our government formally put the Trust Act into effect. And so we have more clearer language that will guide us as attorneys and in turn guide the public. So a will is a document that speaks to the assets distribution after passing. However, the trust is a legal entity that holds your assets for you. And you have access to them while you're alive, but obviously there's a lot more control over how those assets are distributed, whether or not you are around.
All right. So it's not the same thing as a will, and you've given the differentiation.
It's definitely separate.
All right. Can putting a home in a trust really protect it from probate or legal challenges? Can it bulletproof the home against those things?
Absolutely, because when a trust is put in effect, it actually is recorded on your title at the National Land Agency. So they don't necessarily put something in writing on your title, but that very document is kept on record. And so if there's any legal, whether it's a transfer or just anything surrounding the property, that trust takes precedence. And so it's a great way for persons to, if you don't want anybody to really know what you own, for example, then the trust is a vehicle that you can use for that purpose.
All right. Biggest misconceptions that people have about trust. I've given you one. All the rich people have trusts.
The other thing is that it's too expensive. The reality is probate is extremely costly. The fees are between 6 to 12% of the value of your estate. And I'm sure no attorney is going to be charging 6% of your estate to prepare a trust document. Right? The other thing is that it's something that is complicated and it has no weight. It absolutely has weight. I already spoke to the legislation that pertains in Jamaica.
Yes.
And so you have the right to utilize this vehicle if you think it's appropriate. The other thing is you have to have a lot of assets. Once you have something that you want to protect, it's a vehicle that you can utilize.
All right. How can a trust help parents control what happens to property after they're gone?
All right. So for persons who are parents, the trust lets parents decide when and how their children inherits their property. So for example, if you have minor children, oftentimes, in our jurisdiction, you're considered an adult when you become 18. An 18-year-old can manage a $50 million property, for example. They don't have the skill sets, they don't have the wherewithal. And so the trust puts guardrails in place. So if you decide that you want the inheritance to be distributed over time, or if they need to meet certain requirements, if they need to go to school, you can put those guardrails in place, because the trust has to have a trustee who manages over everything. And so it's a really great tool for persons who are parents.
All right. If someone owns real estate, this is the fifth question now, when should they seriously consider setting up a trust?
So home ownership, that starting point, if you have children, if you have persons who are vulnerable and you want to avoid the court process, you don't want to have any drama about who owns what. So if you want to ensure that your property is there for building generational wealth, you don't want anybody to contemplate selling the home, then the trust is a great vehicle for that, because once you put your guardrails in place, nobody can go against that. It then becomes a legal issue. The only way somebody can contest your trust is if they have evidence to show that you are mentally incapacitated at the time of executing the documents.
All right. If someone dies without a trust or a will in place, what happens to the assets they have?
All right, so we are then guided by what the law says in terms of succession and intestacy. So we already have a will in place if we don't take action. The law says your spouse gets 50%, then your children, and then it's divided equally among your children. If you don't have a spouse, if you don't have children, then there are other members of the family that can take on the role of administering your estate. And obviously, if somebody has minor children, that's not a process children can handle. And then now the burden is placed on persons deciding who is going to take up the responsibility of managing your affairs. Whereas if you had at least documented something in a will, or you had at least put together a trust in place to dictate how things are managed, and people know where your assets are, then your family is in a position to be protected.
All right. Can someone put rental property or investment real estate into a trust?
Actually, that's a very good question. Yes, you can. Typically, persons who are buying rental property, these are business owners, and that can actually be complemented by registering a limited liability company for your real estate ventures, if you will. But if you're not that sophisticated, you don't want to register a company because with that comes obligations. Then you can put the rental property in a trust so that it's separate and apart from every other thing that you may own. And there's some demarcation there with, where the revenue is coming from in terms of all your properties.
What happens to a trust if someone who has made out a trust, something happened mentally and they're not so collective anymore, as we would say, still living, but mentally not quite there, but they have a trust? What happens there?
So all the guardrails that you would have put in place, it takes effect. So ideally, you would have demonstrated that you're of good sound mind, and then your successor trustee takes over from there. Typically, once somebody is healthy and of sound mind, they are the trustee of their own trust, but you put things in place to say in the event that something happens with the primary trustee, this person can now take over. And so I say, yes, the trust is a great tool, but you actually have to trust people. You have to identify somebody that can take on that role for you.
And on the role of the trustee, does the trustee have to be an individual? Can it be a company? And how do you choose a trustee?
Yes, that is a great question. So you want to choose people that are responsible, and that you have no reason to challenge their integrity. It can be an individual or it can be a company. There are actually financial institutions in Jamaica that offer trust services, and so they are the trustee on, usually financial instruments, but it doesn't have to be an individual. You can appoint a law firm to be your trustee, like Lawboss, if you so desire, or you can just find a trusted family member that you think have the qualities. They're not going to be bullied. They're going to honor your wishes. The thing about trust is that it's very discreet. And so unless somebody goes digging, they're not going to find it. The document has to be stamped and registered and all of that. But you want to ensure that it's people they're going to, they have your best interest at heart.
All right. So the ultimate question then is this: how do I set up one? Are there easy steps, 1, 2, 3 to setting up a trust? How long will it take before I can get that established in law?
The heavy lift is making up your mind about what you want to be put in it. So think of a gift box. The box is empty and has no value until you put something into it, right? And so you have to make the determination. Once you have any kind of asset, you have to decide, okay, what am I going to put into this document? who are the persons that are going to manage it, and a consultation helps you to figure that out. If you have minor children or people who are vulnerable that you want to ensure that you're looking after, if there are charitable causes that you feel passionate about, you can make reference to those things, put them in the gift box, and then lock it up and package it until you're ready for it. So it starts with a consultation. It starts with clearing your mind, setting up the trust, of course, and then deciding what assets you're going to assign to it.
Very well. All right. Anything else to add? Anything we haven't covered in those 10 questions you fielded?
Right. So if if you have cause to pause here and you are like, well, this is something I might want to consider, reach out for a consultation. It doesn't hurt to educate yourself. Whatever you share with me would be held in the strictest of confidence, and then you can make the determination as to what your next steps are going to be.
And remind them what they can contact you.
Yes, so you can absolutely reach out to me, 990-7313. That's 876-990-7313. Or you can send, you can go to the website, thelawbossfirm.com, and there are opportunities for you to email me there if you want to set up a consultation.
Very well. Managing attorney at the Lawboss Attorneys at Law, Sophia Bryan. Thank you.
Yes, thank you as well.
All things real estate.